Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to another in our series, Understanding the Quran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this segment, in which we are looking at the interpretation of Surah al-Mulk, the 67th chapter of the Quran, we will be focusing on the third verse of the chapter.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. الذي خلق سبع سماوات طباقا ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور.
Who has created the seven heavens one above another. You can see no fault in the creation of the Most Gracious. Then look again. Can you see any rifts? After Allah has spoken about the purpose of creation, in the second verse, in which He said that He had created life and death to test who was best in deeds, as an expression of faith, Allah then goes on to invite reflection on His creation. He focuses on the seven heavens and says, it is He who created them, and we should look in them to see if there is any fault. He created them, and by addressing their creation, He is also making us aware of the status of our own creation. Human beings who tend to think of themselves as being the greatest of creation, Allah humbles them, puts them down a few notches in the 40th chapter of the Quran in verse 57, in which He said, indeed the creation of the heavens and the earth is greater than the creation of mankind, humankind. But most human beings do not realize it. So Allah is causing us or asking us or directing us to reflect beyond ourselves. We tend to look in ourselves and look at the world immediately around us, and we forget our place in the whole cosmos. That we are, in fact, a quite insignificant speck in that whole process. In doing so, there are signs for us. Allah uses the term the seven heavens, and what is meant by it, of course, we cannot establish with certainty. Different theories have been put out about the different layers above the earth. You know, the atmosphere, the biosphere, where the ozone layer ends and we go off into space, different levels. People, have tried to give and divide this up into different segments, etc. But we can't link the Quranic description of the seven heavens to it. We know, of course, that it is not the seven heavens, for example, that the Prophet, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, went through during al-Mi'raj, because these seven heavens, Allah tells us to look at them and reflect on them. Obviously, they must be ones that we can see. So it is not out of this universe, so to speak. But when Allah calls us to have a look at it and to reflect and to look again, to see whether we can see any rifts, what He's drawing us to is the cohesiveness of the cosmos. When we look at the planetary systems, and we look at our galaxy amongst the various galaxies in this universe, what we find is order. Everywhere the human eye looks, it sees systems, orderly systems throughout it. And this has caused a number of scientists who, in their high school days or in their university days had become atheists due to the philosophies of secular society. But having practiced their field of specialization in astronomy, looking at the cosmos and seeing the cohesiveness that is there, they came back stunned and came back really accepting that there must be a God. All of this organization, all of this design, it must indicate a designer. This is not chaos. It's not chaos out there. It's not the product of accident. Accidents produce chaos. What they find is order throughout the universe, wherever they look. And this is a part of the general invitation of the Quran for human beings to reflect on the world around them in order to be conscious of God. Because the human mind is made in such a way that design, when they see design, they automatically reflect on who designed it. When they see a footprint in the sand of a beach, they reflect on who walked there. They don't go to the accidental freaks of nature to explain things which are obvious design. This is their nature to do this. So Allah Most High, He invites human beings to reflect on the cosmos, reflect on the planets, the sun, their relationships, their movements, and then our solar system, the other solar systems that make up our galaxy, and how it's all in motion, and how the whole galaxy is moving through space, and other galaxies are out there moving with systems similar to ours, and there are links between them. All of this points to a creator. And this is the purpose of this advice that Allah gives human beings to reflect. Can they see any inconsistency? And Allah goes on in the verse following it, in verse 4.
ثم ارجع البصر كرتين ينقلب إليك البصر خاسئا وهو حسير.
Then look again, and yet again, your sight will return to you in a state of humiliation and worn out. Allah challenges human beings to look over and over and over again. Don't just look one time or twice, but look a third time and a fourth time. Keep looking. See if you will find any inconsistencies there. There is no disharmony. Human beings, we know, it's natural that when we observe something, the first time you observe it, you might miss some details about it. So you look at it a second time, you'll find out some more details. A third time, again, some more. So Allah says, don't treat this any differently. Look at the sky, look at the heavens, look at the planets, etc. Look again, and again, and again. And you will come back humiliated and worn out. You who thought that you were so great and so mighty and everything was under your foot, you look out there and it'll just make you feel like a little speck, a little nothing in this whole universe. And you will be worn out. You will be worn out because no matter how hard you try, how much time you spend at it, etc., you will not find any inconsistencies there. Even things like what are called black holes, which imply that like there's holes out there in the universe, black holes. I mean, what is happening is that no light is coming from this area. A black hole is a hypothetical cosmic body of extreme, intense gravity from which nothing, not even light, can escape. A black hole can be formed by the death of a massive star, those of more than 3 solar masses, stars with a smaller amount of mass evolve into compressed bodies, either white dwarfs or neutron stars. So this is a theory that the astronomers have, that larger scale stars, which are like 3 times the size of our own sun, when these develop through stages, they reach a point where the pressure within them, the gravitational pressure within them becomes so great, they implode, they turn in on themselves, and even the light cannot escape this region. And this is their explanation as to what are black holes. But of course, this is of course theory to explain, but they're not really saying that there is nothing there. It's just light isn't coming out, so we cannot observe anything there. So there's really no holes. There are no holes. There are no cracks, rifts in the heavens when we look up. And the greater the telescopes, the Hubble telescope, which they've put up, which is orbiting the Earth now to be able to see further into space, and they're putting up newer ones. They've got bigger telescopes planned to be sent up into orbit, even more powerful to see to the farthest reaches of space, as they say, where they think things have run out, there's no more galaxies, etc. Then the new telescopes find, there were some more that we couldn't see, from the Earth or with our most powerful telescopes. There are. As far as we can see, there is matter. There are planets, or there are stars, which they believe have planets around them, and wherever we look, they're there. I mean, we believe, theoretically, there must be an end to all of this. There must be an end to the universe. They see things expanding. They believe it expanded from one point, the so-called Big Bang Theory. But regardless, this theory, which talks about an expanding universe from a single point, if directions were not given to matter as it expanded already from the very beginning, and things were just going to link together, out of accident, then there is no way we would find the kind of organization, consistency out there in the universe. We would have galaxies crashing into other galaxies and all this kind of thing. But we don't have that. What we find are the galaxies all shifting out, all the solar systems within them, moving, and it's just a mass of what we could say clockwork. Scholars look at it and it's just like clock, every part moving, individually and set there. When we look at the clock and the intricate parts of the clock, I mean, we don't imagine to ourselves that this happened by accident. So how can we reasonably, rationally look at the universe whose clockwork is far more complex than the little clocks that we make, and then we seek to say this is just an accident? This is an affront to God. It's an affront to reason. It is a lack of reason which would drive an individual to make such claims. Then Allah goes on in the 5th verse to address another issue.
وَلَقَدْ زَيَّنَّا السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا بِمَصَابِيحَ وَجَعَلْنَاهَا رُجُومًا لِلشَّيَاطِينِ وَأَعْتَدْنَا لَهُمْ عَذَابَ السَّعِيرِ.
And indeed, I have adorned the nearest heaven with lamps, and I have made such lamps as missiles to drive away the devils, and have prepared for them the torment of the blazing fire. Allah goes on to describe aspects of the heavens for us to reflect, as there is relevance to ourselves. He describes the stars out there like lamps. In a dark night, when we look at a city that have lamps in the windows, how the light will flicker. The stars out there seem to flicker before our eyes. So they're like lamps. Allah describes them, they're sources of light. And He says, some of them have been designed as missiles to drive away the devils. Now, He's speaking about a phenomena which is taking place in the universe, which is not observable to us. When we look out in our telescopes, we don't see devils being chased away by missiles. But Allah informs us that from the world of the jinn, the parallel universe, which is parallel to us, invisible to us, creatures that have a choice between good and evil like ourselves. Among them are those that are able to go up into the farthest reaches of the skies. And they're able to go all the way up to the lowest heaven and listen in on some of the commands and instructions that are being passed down by the angels to angels who will come into our world and do certain things. And they will get this information and try to bring it back down to certain individuals on the earth. And Allah has some of these missiles that are comets or meteors, which move through space and drive away these elements of the jinn from the lowest of the heavens and the farther reaches of the universe. Allah describes it elsewhere in the Quran in Surah Al-Jinn, where He said, and we have sought to reach the heavens, that is the jinn speaking about themselves, that we have sought to reach the heavens, but found it filled with stern guards and flaming fires. And verily we used to sit there in stations to steal a hearing, but any who listens now will find a flaming fire watching him in ambush. And in Surah Al-Hijr, we also find, and that is the 15th chapter, verses 17 and 18, Allah saying, and indeed we have put the big stars in the heaven, and we beautified it for the beholders, and we have guarded it from every outcast devil, except him that gains hearing by stealing it. He is pursued by a clear flaming fire. So this phenomena has been explained in the Quran as reality, not to us. It's not a fable. It's not a story explaining things which we are not able to explain. You know, as in the past, we know societies do make up fables and mythologies to explain certain events and things which happen in history or in nature, etc., which they didn't have scientific knowledge to explain, which later on we were able to explain and say, well, this was just nonsense. This is not the case in the Quran, because whatever the Quran speaks of is fact. When we look at how many things the Quran has spoken about with regards to science, which have only been proven in our times, I mean, it leaves one without any possibility of doubting the facts that are there in the Quran. So though we are not able to observe the process of the jinn being chased away from the skies, from the outer reaches of the solar system or the universe, we believe it is taking place. Allah informs us about it because of the fact that some of that information which they bring down, they do bring it into our world in such a way as to influence events in our world. Now, this is of particular importance because of the fact that the practice of fortune telling has a great impact on our lives, on many of our lives. You know, fortune telling is a popular form of recreation as well as a form of seeking knowledge, you know, amongst many people, many human beings. And the Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, had informed us that the jinn would pass information back down, that's those who managed to bring that information, until it reaches the lips of a magician or fortune teller. Sometimes a meteor would overtake them before they could pass it on. If they passed it on before being struck, they would add to it 100 lies. This is the nature of the information being given by the fortune tellers. Aisha, the third wife of the Prophet ﷺ, reported that when she asked him about fortune tellers, he replied that they were nothing. She then mentioned that the fortune tellers sometimes told things which were true. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "That is a bit of truth which the jinn steals and cackles in the ear of his friend, but he mixes along with it 100 lies." So, fortune telling, which is on a level where the information conveyed is accurate, this involves dealing with the world of the jinn. Of course, there are fortune tellers who just give general information, and that information has a certain amount of truth to it, because they're generalities, you're going to get married, you're going to travel, these type of things. But there is an element amongst the fortune tellers that are actually dealing with the jinn, and they have a high degree of accuracy in some of their predictions. Now, this topic is a topic that we need to look at in more depth, and we will do so in our coming segment. The issue of the jinn, fortune telling, and Allah's protection of human beings by informing them about this phenomena. Okay, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with us in this segment of our program, Understanding the Quran. I hope to see you in the coming segment. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.